Save Titanfall appears on Apex Legends. But why? Why should you care and why is it important? Well, I'm about to tell you. Hi, welcome to Zgadgetreview. Over the weekend, hackers were able to break into Apex Legends and plaster the game with messages that read, "Save Titanfall." That actually was a message that appeared on screens and didn't allow people to play the game. Once you went into savetitanfall.com, it's actually a website, it explained the reason why the hackers were interrupting your gaming experience. Not that I agree with their tactics. I think getting into someone's game and stopping them from playing the game is not the right way to go about things, but it's kind of a desperate times call for desperate measures kind of tactic. Now, the reason why hackers decided to take this approach on Apex Legends, one, because Apex Legends is made by Respawn, which is the same developer that made Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2. Titanfall 1, if you're not aware, is a game that is only online multiplayer experience. You can fill up the map with bots, but the bots are really crappy players. I'm telling you from experience, I played that game. The whole point of the game was that this was supposed to be a brand new experience with mechs, wall running, and you could be, or you were, a soldier who could not only do hand-to-hand combat with other players, but could call in your titans. This case, why the war is called Titanfall, because a titan falls from the sky to the ground that you can call in at times after you fill up a bar. And they had different titans, otherwise known as mechs or robots, that you could get into and pilot and fight other players against their own mechs. The game was actually really fun. The game came out back in March of 2014. So the game is 7 years old. By most people will say the game is old. Why are people playing this game? Because nowadays a 7-year-old game doesn't look as bad as a 7-year-old game did back in the early 2000s or late 90s. So you can still play a game from 2014 and the game looks pretty good. The grievances from players is that right now Titanfall 1, mostly on PC, is unplayable. And it's something that they have been trying to get Respawn to fix. This is the message that they have when you go to their website. Titanfall 1 is currently unplayable on PC due to hackers using exploits that prevent players from being able to play the game. This issue has been happening for years, and Respawn is willingly pretending that they do not know about the situation. To this day, Titanfall 1 is still on sale on the Origin and more recently Steam, even though it is unplayable. Respawn, the developers, have been contacted about this matter numerous times in many ways. Even when the developers have been directly contacted, as soon as the topic of Titanfall 1 problem is brought up, they stop replying. It makes sense that Respawn is kind of going like, we don't really care, because it's a 7-year-old game. As much as the game might be selling, I'm sure it isn't selling as much as it used to sell. Not only that, but they have something that's actually making them money, which is called Apex Legends. Apex Legends, I think by now, is a $1 billion franchise. The fact that they are making money with the game means that they don't really need to support their other games, in this case Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 actually has a campaign, so you can buy the game and actually play the game and not necessarily have to play the multiplayer version. The problem with Titanfall 1 is that it's only multiplayer, and this is something that I've talked about in previous videos about multiplayer only games. In this case, again, bringing up Battlefield 2042. It's a game that is going to come out this year at some point. It's a game that is going to be heavily reliant on online connections. Multiplayer only game. What's going to happen when 7 years from now they decide that they don't want to support the game anymore? Then what? You paid for the game, because Titanfall was a $60 game when it came out. Battlefield 2042 is an EA game. It will cost $70 because the pricing already came out. That might stop working in 5, 6, 7 years from now. And most people's argument is, well, it's an old game. What do you expect? I'm going to give you an example, and I know it's not apples to apples comparison, right? But Saturn was a car brand from GM, if I'm not mistaken. They stopped making the cars. So Saturn as a brand ceased to exist. By law, GM has to offer parts for that brand 14 years from the day they decided to stop making the car. In this case, that was in 2005, meaning that if you own that car, you are assured that if anything breaks down on that car for the next 10 years, that you'll be able to find parts and fix your car to continue using it. Because you as a consumer, it's not your fault that the company decided to stop manufacturing that brand of car. It's the same thing with games. If I buy a game that the manufacturer decided to provide online service only and to make available through online playing only, then I should have some sort of assurance that I'm going to be able to play this game for as long as I want to play this game. And that can be 20 years from now, because if I am paying my money to buy a good, to buy a service, to buy something, then I should be giving some sort of assurance of how long I'm going to have access to that service. Just because the developer decides that, hey, it didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out, so we're not going to offer any more access to this game. Are you going to refund me my money for that game? Oh, no. Why? Because the game ran for 3 years and it didn't work in 3 years? And we've seen this happen before. It isn't the first time and it isn't going to be the last. And so while I don't agree with the tactics from these safe Titanfall hackers, I do understand where they're coming from. This, again, is an issue of creating games and experiences online and not having any sort of responsibility to what happens to the game, because they don't. Developers can't just go and say, hey, the game failed, sorry, and move on, right? And then we are left holding the bag. We are left out of the money that we spent on that game. In this case, Titanfall. I thankfully own Titanfall on Xbox, but if I own it on a PC and I wanted to go play it today, I technically couldn't, or I could sit there just trying and maybe getting lucky and playing a match or two versus being able to actually go play the game. So why does it matter? And what's the point of this whole video? It's again to talk about the issue that we are going to start seeing more and more happen with these games that are online only. And that is the fact that if a developer is making an experience that is online only, that we should be provided as consumers with some sort of expectations on how long the game is going to be available to us to play. So we can make an educated decision if we want to buy a game or not. We are entitled to that at minimum as consumers. Just like we're entitled as consumers to get a game that isn't broken, like Cyberpunk 2077. It's time for developers to stop making up information about their games, to stop selling us on something that isn't true. Because at the end of the day, a lie is a lie. You cannot say, like Cyberpunk 2077, you're going to have all these things on the game when it only has like a quarter of them, if any. You cannot say that you tested a game when every single platform that the game runs into is buggy and broken, because that is a lie. And I'm using Cyberpunk 2077 as a more recent example because that just happened. Yes, this is me ranting about games, but also because I am a consumer who spends money in games. And I am sick and tired of paying money for a game that is broken, or paying money for a game that is going to stop working in 5 years if I decide that I want to play it again in 5 years. Why? Because I own it and because I felt like sitting on the game for 5 years and then I decided that I wanted to play it 5 years later. You know what? It is my right because I spend that money to do that if I want to do that. How do you feel about what Respawn is doing to the Titanfall community? Titanfall 1 community. I guess Titanfall 2 runs perfectly. I don't know. What do you think that developers should do? Do you think that they do have a responsibility, as I have laid out here on this video? Give me your opinions. Let me know how you feel in the comment section. I really appreciate to hear how you feel about this subject. Well, that's it for me. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. It helps the channel. Go ahead and Hit that bell so you can be alerted every time we have new videos. And thank you very much for watching.